People said his food healed sadness. They said it made a bad day better. Some said it tasted like something familiar, something comforting, but no one could ever explain why. Every evening, the line at his stand stretched beyond the corner. Students, taxi drivers, nurses, traders, people heading home late, people returning from church, people who didn't even know his name, but knew his taste. His prices were low, his portions were large, his smile never faded. Imagine the aroma of delicious food drifting through a busy evening market. The kind of smell that makes strangers follow it without thinking. Imagine a food seller whose meals tasted so good that people traveled from towns away just to buy a single plate. Now, imagine discovering that every bite you ever took from him came from a dead body. Tonight, you're about to hear one of the most disturbing true stories ever buried in silence. A story authorities tried to keep away from the public. A story that unfolded quietly behind the doors of a mortuary and inside the walls of a small food stand. A story about a man who fed an entire town with meat he purchased. Not from a farm, not from a butcher, but from the dead. This is the chilling case of the mysterious food seller who bought human corpses for meat. Stay with me, all the way to the end, because the truth behind this man's secret is far more twisted than anyone expected. For years, he was the man everyone trusted. A humble food seller whose stand glowed like a warm lantern in the night. People said his food healed sadness. They said it made a bad day better. Some said it tasted like something familiar, something comforting, but no one could ever explain why. Every evening, the line at his stand stretched beyond the corner. Students, taxi drivers, nurses, traders, people heading home late, people returning from church, people who didn't even know his name, but knew his taste. His prices were low, his portions were large, his smile never faded. He became a legend of the night market. But legends often hide their darkest truths beneath their brightest stories. Because while his stand was full of hungry customers, his nights were full of something else entirely. Long before he ever served his first plate, this man worked quietly in a job most people avoid. Cleaning a district mortuary. He had seen more bodies than most doctors, more death than most detectives, more silence than any man should ever face alone. When bodies were brought in unclaimed, when families never came, when paperwork sat untouched for months, he was the one who washed them, moved them, zipped the bags, stored them in cold metal drawers that hummed through the night. And for most of his early years, he carried out his duties normally. Until one night, everything changed. A body arrived with no identification. A young man, healthy, strong, no family, no visitors, no claims. Mortuary workers called him one of the forgotten. But one cleaner, the man who would later become the food seller, looked at the body and felt something shift inside him. He would later tell investigators that curiosity pushed him. Others said desperation. Some swear it was darkness he'd carried long before that night. But whatever the reason, he made a decision no one expected. He cut a small piece of flesh from the body, took it home, cooked it with regular spices, and tasted it. That single moment, that single bite, would mark the beginning of one of the darkest food operations the country had ever seen. Because he didn't feel disgust. He didn't feel shame. He felt opportunity. From that night forward, his mind twisted slowly. What he tasted, he believed he could turn into money, into fame, into a business. So he left the mortuary, bought a small stand, opened a food stall, and people loved it. But what people didn't know was that behind every delicious plate, behind every juicy bite, was a secret supply chain that operated in complete darkness. Because he knew where to get more meat, and he knew who needed money badly enough to help him, he returned to his old workplace months later, not as a cleaner, but as a customer. He approached two mortuary attendants, men who earned little, men whose salaries barely covered their families' needs. He offered them money, high money, easy money. All he wanted was access to the bodies that were never claimed. At first the men refused. But poverty is a cruel negotiator. And soon, they agreed. The deal was simple. When a body came in and no family appeared, he was informed. And in the dead of night, pieces of meat were cut, wrapped, and handed to him behind the mortuary. At his food stand, the meat was grilled, seasoned, stewed, smoked, and served hot. Every customer smiled. Every customer came back. And not a single soul imagined they were eating human flesh. The food seller grew more confident, more bold, more unstoppable, until one day, someone new entered the picture. A young mortuary worker named Kojo was hired. Disciplined, organized, very observant. Within his first weeks, he noticed things that didn't add up. Bodies that were complete one day, suddenly missing limbs the next. Drawers that were full, mysteriously empty. Documents that didn't match what he physically counted. He asked questions. He raised concerns. He filed reports. No one cared. His supervisors dismissed him. He became suspicious, and then curious, and then determined. Until one night, he decided to follow one of the mortuary attendants after work. That decision changed everything. Kojo followed the attendant into a dim backyard area behind the mortuary. There, under the shadows, he saw a black bag handed over to the familiar face of the food seller, the same man whose stand he passed every evening. He watched closely. He listened. And when he saw the bag open, revealing raw human flesh inside, Kojo felt his entire body go cold. Shock, disgust, fear, panic. He knew this was beyond anything he could handle alone. He rushed forward and confronted the attendants. But that confrontation nearly cost him his life. The attendants attacked him, stabbed him, beat him, left him barely breathing behind the mortuary. They planned to register him as an unclaimed body the next morning. But fate had other plans. Kojo regained consciousness, crawled to the street, collapsed in front of a passing vehicle that rushed him to the hospital. And by morning, the police were involved. Authorities began an investigation so quiet that even the food seller didn't notice. They followed him for days, watched him meet the mortuary staff, documented every bag he carried, every movement he made. Then one night, they struck. Police stormed his food stand. They cut open every freezer, tested every piece of meat. And what they found shocked the nation. The meat was human, all of it, dozens of samples, multiple victims, years of unclaimed bodies turned into food. And when they arrested the food seller, he didn't fight. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He simply smiled. During interrogation, he said something investigators will never forget. I fed them what they enjoyed. And they kept coming back. There was no remorse, no regret, no guilt, just certainty. As if he believed he had given people a service, rather than a horror. The town fell apart emotionally. People vomited at the memory of eating his food. Some refused to believe the story. Others demanded the whole market be burned. Families wept knowing bodies of their loved ones may have been butchered. The mortuary was shut down. The attendants were jailed. The food stand was destroyed. But the psychological wounds, those never heal. Even years later, people in that region still hesitate to buy from night food stands. They whisper about it, warn newcomers, tell their children to avoid cheap meat. The story became a dark legend, a warning, a reminder of how evil can hide behind a smile, a warm plate, and a friendly voice. Evil does not always scream. Sometimes, it cooks. Sometimes it serves. Sometimes it smiles gently while handing you a plate you never should have tasted. The food seller fooled an entire town for years. He fed them death disguised as dinner. And no one, not even the police, suspected a thing until one man decided to speak up. In the end, the most terrifying part of this story isn't the crime itself. It's this. The people loved the food. They lined up for it. They begged for more. And no one, not a single person, ever asked what kind of meat they were really eating.